Well, welcome to my channel Mispronounced Adventures. My name's Alex and welcome to Northern Lapland, deep in the Finnish Arctic. It's currently a balmy minus 22 degrees. And that there is a 12 volt, 100 amp hour LiPo4 lithium battery. And it is currently got a cell temperature of minus 13 degrees and it's happily charging away. That battery has no insulation, no heat pads, but there is no damage occurring with that internal cell temperature far below zero. So I'm going to tell you about the big lithium lie, or a misconception. Most people are told you can't charge lithium below zero because it damages it. I'm going to tell you why that Roma Xtreme series battery, which uses a standard LiPo4 chemistry, can happily charge below zero, but why others can't. I'm also going to tell you about lithium batteries, or lithium leisure batteries in general, and what goes on underneath those plastic boxes. But it's freezing, so let's get inside. Short form answer: the LiPo4 chemistry is not the limiting factor. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Cheers, bye. Okay, long form answer. I'm going to talk about the anatomy of lithium batteries. What's more than, as just the consumer sees, is a black box with a positive and negative terminal. How lithium cells work, because that's the key component to this whole battery. And also, for people who have any sort of lithium battery, how to install them and put them in your van in a conscious way to look after them in the cold. In being honest, this is a sponsored video with Roma. Roma kindly gave me two of their 200 amp hour Xtreme series batteries for my Arctic trip, because this winter in the northern Nordic Arctic, I'm hunting minus 40 or colder. And they've also loaned me this 100 amp hour battery, mainly because it's a right pain to have to take apart my battery bank every time I need to do a promotional photograph or shot with it. There's an analogy I like for getting the idea across for lithium batteries. You could have three different companies, one which have a very cheap 12 volt 100 amp hour lithium battery, one which have a mid-tier price bracket, and one which is very expensive. And you might think, well, they're all batteries, they're all 12 volt, and they all have 100 amp hours. Why would I want to pay for the extremely expensive one when there's a way cheaper one? In many ways, you can look at it the same way as you look at cars. Yes, a Fiat Punto and a BMW X5 will both get you from A to B, but everyone understands why there's a big price difference between them. There are so many different reasons lithium batteries, whilst are the same output, might have a very different price tag. For the quality of the kit used, how much is designed, how much is just a rebrand. So consider when you're looking into your lithium batteries that cheapest might not always be the best option. But I'm going to tell you why 99% of the people who are watching this from a campervan and motorhome point of view do not need the Xtreme series or need to charge at minus 30. Roma's normal smart series, so their normal lithium batteries, which are significantly cheaper and smaller than the Xtreme series, will be perfectly adequate. They have low temperature cutoffs, but I am going to be cheeky. I do have an affiliate link with Roma. If you are a lunatic like me and you do want the Xtreme series battery, feel free to order it on my affiliate link. If you are normal and sensible and you want a high-end, good quality lithium battery for your van, campervan and motorhome, or off-grid setting, their normal smart series as well, feel free to use my affiliate link in the description. Right, this video is not plugging this battery. It's more going to be, let's learn about lithium batteries more in depth and the lithium chemistries and how lithium batteries work. I do my best to say LiPo4, but if I'm referring to the word lithium in the context of this video, I mean the LiPo4 chemistry. There are other chemistries out there. There is MCN, which is a nickel-based chemistry, which you will see in some models of portable power banks like these. But also some of those power banks are starting to use LiPo4 as well. There's also LiPo, which is the ones which you may see in RC cars or those racing drones. There are a bunch of other chemistries, but they've all got their own pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages and reasons you use them in different places. So we are just talking about LiPo4 chemistry and not any of the other ones, because this is the most common type of battery chemistry to be available in a leisure battery form. First point I want to bring up with batteries is, as a consumer, most people only see a black battery box with a positive and negative terminal on it. And a lot of people are going to go, oh, they're just Chinese rebrands. Generation 1 of Roma's batteries were Chinese rebrands. They're now on their Generation 3 and their Xtreme series as well, which is developed and tested for them. They are still manufactured in China, but they are not just a straight Chinese rebrand. They are an individual battery made for Roma, all the way to when I was in the Roma office, I got to see their BMSs, which we'll talk about later on. And they showed me what they've developed and how they've changed the BMS designs and reinforced different components from warranty claims and customer experience. So these batteries are not just the Roma name stuck on a generic Chinese made battery. They are unique to Roma, especially the extreme cold weather ones. Right, first off, whilst many batteries use the same type of boxes, inside changes differently. Lithium cells come in a variety of different chemistries, as we talked about, and a variety of different shell shapes. You could have 18650 cells, which are these small ones, and the current battery system I have, each one of my electric system batteries has 400 of these cells in them, running in groups of 100. You can also have larger cylindrical cells. These are the cold temperature cells which the Xtreme series use, and you can also have the prismatic. These cells, they're big, they're rectangular. You would have probably seen them more often if you've seen photographs of someone building their own DIY lithium battery. But most of the time they will have in a configuration maybe just 4 cells and a high amp hour. The voltage will be the same, but the amp hours for that will be higher. Whilst batteries like this might have multiple of these, the voltage will be the same, but there'll be lots and lots of these running in parallel to bring up the amp hours. So already LiPo4 lithium battery could have a variety of different things inside the box. There are also different grades of lithium cells as well, but most companies producing lithium leisure batteries are saying they are using grade A cells. Next up is the BMS, the battery management system. The BMS has got many jobs. One of the most important roles is cell balancing. Just like if you had a lead acid battery bank and you had it running 24 volt or 48 volt of just 12 volt batteries, you have 2 or 4 batteries running in series when that increases the voltage. The same principle happens with these. These are a lower voltage, and to get your 12 volt or your 24 volt, you run groups of these, or individual if it's the larger cells, in series to increase the voltage. The battery management goal is to manage those cells just like a battery bank where you're running multiple batteries in series. Individual batteries can become unbalanced, and a battery balancer's job in that case is to make sure all the batteries remain the same voltage. The BMS's job is to do the same thing. When you have 4 different cells inside, the BMS job is to balance those cells, and they can do that in a number of ways. The BMS may have an active balancer, which will move energy from the highest cell into the lowest voltage cell, or it may have a more passive solution using something like a bleed resistor, where it burns off excess energy from higher cells to bring them down towards the lower cell. The new model Romas use active balancing. One of the other things the BMS will manage is the cold temperature shutoff. So a lot of batteries with modern BMSs, because they're not suitable for charging at those low temperatures, will have a cutoff which will disable charging so you can't damage them. Some batteries, it might disable everything and turn the battery off until you heat it up, but most batteries seem to just disable the charging. Whilst your BMS will have plenty of protection features such as the low temperature turn-off, a low voltage turn-off to stop you from discharging it too much, they shouldn't be your system's primary form of safety. The BMS protection option should be your battery's last resort, not its first. Your system should already have safety precautions built into it to prevent you from over-discharging the system or prevent the battery or the chargers from turning on in low temperature scenarios. There are many models of BMSs. Some are generic and just get rebranded with different companies' names, whilst other companies have worked with suppliers to build and update and improve on BMSs, and others have built them, designed their own from ground up. So at the minute, I want you to visualise there are a pack of cells in here, and there's a BMS sitting on top. I'll draw your picture on my whiteboard. Right, anatomy of a lithium battery. I'm going to base this anatomy off a 100 amp hour 12 volt. So these are going to be 4 prismatic, that cell beginning with P, I can't remember. They're going to be in a block of there, and they're all going to be probably taped together as well with, it's not sellotape, but that sort of yellowy electrical tape. So they're all going to be taped together. You can have your BMS potentially sitting on top, so we'll draw a BMS on there. That's your battery management system, that's your BMS. All of those are going to be connected to there in one way or another. And then that's all going to sit in a plastic box. That sits in your plastic box. You got your terminals, your positive terminal, your negative terminal, main BMS wires running up to there. Same for the other side. Your cells probably aren't also the same size as your box, so you've probably got some packing as well, just packing it out so it doesn't move around. And that's pretty much going to be your lithium battery. You have a bunch of cells inside a box. These batteries actually use a cylindrical cell, so they'll be in big groups. But a lot of conventional batteries, as well as the normal Roma batteries, use this type of cell. Most consumers, don't really matter, as long as you've got two terminals there. But this is where the big difference is between many companies, is what's inside the box. The reason I like Roma is they actively have worked and developed their batteries, so what's inside this black box will be completely different and designed for Roma than you will see a lot of the other generic ones, which may come in a very similar style box. Sorry Roma, but I'm going to pry the lid off a little bit so we can sort of have an idea and have a look inside. Right, I don't want to be too naughty because this is a loaner cell, but there we go. I don't want to break the entire glue off the lid. We've got the BMS sitting on top, and then you got the cells, which it sits on over on the side there. The other option you'll see a lot is heat pads, and I want to bring a few things up about heat pads. Heat pads, I built custom heat pads for my own batteries. I built an aluminium plate underneath with a heating element underneath it, and that is a really good idea as a way to heat batteries. However, you will see quite a lot of companies, or lithium battery companies, are now including battery heaters in their batteries. Roma don't include battery heaters in their batteries. The Xtreme series they don't, and their normal Smart series they don't, because they are often not very well implemented. It'd be far more effective for the person installing the battery to make some conscious decisions on how they install the battery, where it's placed and how it's placed, or to put it in an insulated box and build their own external battery heaters. A lot of the internal battery heaters aren't necessarily well implemented, and I'm going to explain why. Quite a lot of companies who are putting battery heaters in their batteries are wrapping hot elements around the cells like so. With a thermostat, there'll be a temperature sensor, and that temperature sensor could be placed in the middle of the pack, or it could be placed on the top. That has a massive effect. The problem being is if your battery is frozen and you heat it up with an element just external, you're effectively going to be trying to cook a frozen turkey in a frying pan. You're going to heat very well the exterior of the cells. You're not going to heat the interior, or you are very slowly. The other point to think is if you're wrapping the sides of the cells, because I haven't actually seen many companies who have done their heat pads on the bottom, which may well be for the reasons that when these are placed inside the battery cases, all that free space is around the sides, not on the bottom, because the cells are sitting on it. The problem you get there is your heating element is going into the cell itself, but also you're heating the air mass. So you're heating all that available free air inside the battery case, and if that temperature sensor is up on top, you're going to heat up that air mass quicker than you are going to heat the lithium cells. Additionally, this isn't the bit which is getting cold of your battery, even in UK conditions to sub-zero temperatures, is because they've placed their battery directly on the floor, so all that cold bridge between the van's floor, even if it's insulated, is entering the battery or entering the cells right at the bottom. So yeah, you might heat this part back up to 5 or 6 degrees or 8 degrees, and you might have this bit all nice and warm, but at the bottom of your battery, which is where the cold surface is and where most of that cold is coming in, might still be -5. And then if your temperature sensor is up here or up here, it's now turned off its low temperature cutoff, and it's allowing charging, and it's allowing charging when you've got a warm lithium cells up here and cold lithium cell down the bottom. I believe that building your own external battery heater this is where the cold enters. More often than not, if you're in the van, most of the cold is not entering from the top of the sides, it's entering the bottom because it's sitting on the cold floor of your van. So if you build a heat pad, which is heating here, and it's just heating the battery exterior, so it's not heating the air mass up as much, and it's going to heat up the coldest point of your battery, and eventually whenever your temperature sensor, wherever it's placed, deems it safe to charge again, the coldest point of your battery is going to be hot or safe to charge. Well, that's my 2 cents on battery heaters in batteries. They are great marketing and they will work in some batteries, but they are not always going to be well implemented. So if you are shopping around for a battery because you particularly want a battery heater, consider how that battery heater is implemented. And also the other part to consider is battery heaters use power, which is totally fine. Even an external battery heater uses power. However, if you're using something like a Victron Smart Shunt or another battery monitor, you aren't going to see the energy used or consumed to heat the battery apart from the BMS built in. Next up, let's look at those individual lithium cells and how those lithium cells work. So I'm going to bring you over to my whiteboard and we're going to have a look at how lithium cells actually work and why these ones can charge in cold temperature, but the chemistry remains the same. So I'm going to explain how a lithium cell works, probably in a way which is going to be oversimplified and make a battery chemist cry, but hopefully to get the overall concept across. This is not a physical representation of a lithium cell, but overall the structure and the concept. So the anatomy, you've got your anode and that's your negative. You've got your cathode and that's your LiPo4, that's your positive. In the middle you have your separator, and that prevents your cathode and anode or negative and positive touching, causing a short. But it's porous and it allows the passage of lithium ions both ways. And then you've got the electrolyte, which is what the lithium ions, when they are moving between, will be suspended in. So we're going to talk about charging because that's the whole purpose of this video, and these cold temperature charging batteries. So when you are charging, lithium ions are torn away from the cathode and they make their way over to the anode. They do that through the electrolyte. When you get to the top of the charge cycle, those lithium ions are absorbed into the anode, and vice versa. When you are discharging a battery, when you've got a load, when you're running something, lithium ions travel effectively the other way around from the anode over to the cathode. That is an oversimplified form of how a lithium cell works. So we're talking about the problems with low temperature charging of lithium cells. The problem is that the electrolyte for conventional LiPo4 electrolyte is in the cold temperatures, it has a reduced ionic conductivity. Colder it gets, it slows down the passage of the lithium ions through to the anode. And that also causes the problem of lithium plating, or the lithium turning into its metallic form, building dendrites, which is a spiky crystal structure, or imagine your Christmas snowflake, that is a dendrite structure. And that will form a lithium plating over your anode, and that's the damage which you'll cause to your lithium battery charging it cold. That plating, one, prevents the lithium ions are absorbed into the anode, and also is removing useful lithium for your charging and turning it into a metallic form. So the damage you're doing is you're decreasing the amp hours or the watt hours or the charged capacity of your battery because you've changed the state of the lithium. But lithium plating happens in the long term. It's a pretty normal part of a battery's lifespan. So when you see a LiPo4 battery advertised with a 3000 life cycle, that means it can be discharged from 100% down to zero 3000 times. And at that 3000 times lifespan, the battery will be down to 80% of its original capacity. It will have lost 20% of its ability to charge. And lithium plating is an irreversible effect, but a normal part of a battery's lifespan. It is also physically represented by swelling. Here's an example of swollen lithium cells, and that's physically the lithium plating building up. Whilst lithium plating is a normal part of a battery's lifespan, a number of things can accelerate it, such as cold temperature charging and deep depth of discharge of an unsuitable battery, as well as other things such as extremely high current charging. So what does Romer's cold weather or cold temperature cell do? These were specially developed and tested for this model of battery. So they've kept the LiPo4 chemistry, the cathode, the same. They've changed the electrolyte to a modulated -80 non-condensing electrolyzer, which I don't know what that means. It negates the issue of lithium ions being slowed down by the electrolyte when they're cold, and that then decreases the issue. On top of that, they've changed the anode material to one with a large crystal plane spacing. It's reduced the ability for lithium plating or for the crystal structures of the lithium metal to form on the anode. And what that does is massively reduce the effects of lithium plating in cold weather scenarios. So they can be discharged down to 99% without the effects that normally occur. But lithium plating, as always, is a natural part of a battery's lifespan. So the cells Romer are using keep the chemistry the same and effectively have changed everything else in the lithium cell to allow safe charging or non-damaging charging of the lithium cell down to -30. And that is probably a massive oversimplification of the charging process of lithium, because when there are lithium ions moving in one direction, there are electrons moving the other through the circuit. The electrolyzer has a lot more roles than I've made out. Hopefully I've simplified the overall concept of how lithium charging works. It would probably be helpful if I explained how this cylindrical lithium cell has that inside it. Imagine if this was squished, turned on its side and was a flat layer, and then you rolled it all up and put it in there. And that's how it works for cylindrical cells. Well, we've shown that is a cylindrical lithium cell. This is a roll of toilet paper. I hope many people are probably familiar with this, but the structure is pretty similar. It's wrapped around itself. That's an example minus the middle of a cylindrical cell. And that is kind of an example of a prismatic cell. And this is where the problem with cell heaters can be. If your cell is inside its battery case, it's usually sitting on the bottom, no insulation there, no battery heater or cell heater there, terminals on top, and then the cell is wrapped in a hot element. If all your cold coming in the bottom and you're just heating the sides of that cell, if you unwrapped that cell, how well do you think, or how evenly do you think that cell would be heated? And that's where, frankly, it can be poorly implemented or even dangerous. As well as the number of cells, some companies, for example, if you're doing a 12-volt 100 amp hour battery, you would have 4 of these prismatic cells. Some companies might just wrap the 2 exterior cells, or some companies might just wrap the whole block. So there would be different cell temperatures between the different cells as well, let alone inside in each individual cell. So do look how, if you are interested in batteries which have cell heaters, how those cell heaters have been implemented, and if you think that cell's being heated evenly. Even with normal lithium batteries, you can charge them below zero. It's all to do with the charge current opposed to the charge overall. So a very small charge current can be safe for a battery. That low charge current can also increase the cell temperature. So some ways that some electric vehicles get away with it is that the chargers are directly integrated into the battery and they know what's going on. The reason you don't see this system implemented in campervans is the chargers, be that DC to DC chargers from the engine or MPPT chargers, or when you're on hookup, are generally isolated from the batteries and don't really have an idea of what's going on and can't really vary their charge current appropriately because of that. So it's far safer just to have a cold temperature turn off. Almost every component of these, battery-wise, not the plastic box, has been developed and tested for Roma to make the Xtreme series. And I started this video by saying, you don't need to buy one of these batteries. Because you probably don't. I'm an absolute lunatic. I'm currently in the Arctic because I want to try and find the coldest conditions possible. -31. These are only rated to -30 charging, which is why I'm installing them still in a conscious way, which mitigates most amount of cold transfer from the van floor into them. A great way to stop batteries from getting cold is considering how you put them into your van, campervan or motorhome. So a lot of the time batteries just get put in the garage area or in the bottom of a cupboard flat on the floor, and that creates a cold bridge. Just like this, you can imagine you have 100% cold surface contact with the bottom of your battery, even if your van's floor is insulated. But by putting your battery in little stilts, like this example, breaks that cold bridge and you can change from having 100% contact with a cold floor to maybe 5%. And that makes a far bigger difference. Same even if you were doing an insulated box, consider taking that insulated box off the ground and having a little air gap beneath it. And if your diesel heater's nearby, you can always waft warm air from that, like from a vent or from a fan, just blowing warm air into that gap below the battery, keeping it warm that way. So something to consider is the warranty of the unit and serviceability. So Roma's Smart Generation 3 and their Xtreme series are a serviceable battery and they have a 10-year warranty. It is pretty sunny and I've had to put my sunglasses on because I'm getting blinded trying to film this. So apologies that I look ridiculous. So I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more what goes on underneath the plastic battery boxes, all the way down to the components which are used and how cells to a degree work, and the variation which can be between all the different batteries, even though they might be 12 volt 100 amp hour, how there can be a massive variation of quality, workmanship and components used in that. They're not all equal. I'm going to put a link to a channel which has a lot of teardown of batteries, so you can see how, whilst they might be advertised as the same thing, when you take the plastic cover off, you can see there's a wide variety of components and qualities, some good and some bad. I'm also going to put a link to a channel which has got a video about a bit more of a scientific approach looking at how lithium chemistry works in batteries, which is really quite interesting. I should probably actually talk about the product itself. So the Roma Xtreme series, we've already mentioned its key feature is it can be charged well below zero, down to -30 without damage, and discharged down to -40 without the need of cell heaters, due to the changes they've made to the lithium cell itself. A byproduct of that as well is it can also be discharged to 99%. So I've not really mentioned any individual specs of the batteries because I'm more talking about the series opposed to individual units, because there are 24 volt versions, 12 volt versions, 100 amp hour, 200 amp hour. So if you want to find out more about the batteries themselves, go on to Roma's website and you can find their data sheets, and that's got everything from the specs of the BMSs to all the certifications that the batteries hold. And you can also find some of Roma's own testing and independent testing on the cold temperature cells. Disadvantages of these batteries over Roma's normal Smart series is, one, they are substantially larger. The same box is used for Roma's Smart 300 amp hour batteries. For here, this only fits the 200 amp hour. That's just because these cold temperature lithium cells are larger, and also the price to go with it as well. These are significantly more expensive than their equivalent non-cold temperature counterparts, which makes sense. They are using a special lithium cell, and they have had quite a lot of investment into them in the research and development. Normally in the UK, we only get down to -5. Yes, in the winter, many lithium batteries, if left just plonked on the floor of a van, will get below zero, and that's normally when a low temperature cutoff will engage. That can be rectified either by having an Xtreme series battery, or just giving a bit of thought about how the battery is mounted in the van, raising it off the floor, and a few other options. Up here in the Nordics, on the other hand, a battery like this could be very useful. Where a motorhome or a campervan might not be used for days or weeks on end, I could happily sit down and be far below zero, but when there is a little bit of solar, or when it's driven off and the vehicle is started, I could happily keep the battery topped up without having to worry about damaging the unit or the battery having to be heated. Other use could be in overland vehicles, such as the big trucks, which have their underslung lockers. Some electrics and batteries could be based in there and not have to worry about them getting cold, or vehicles which have auxiliary batteries in the engine bay or in the cab, which might also be unheated. A battery like this could be a great option. I also think there's plenty of industry use as well for a battery like this, where a battery could sit in a remote place, be charged by the solar, and not have to worry about dropping below zero or damaging it, or have to worry about heating the battery. If you are interested in a Roma Xtreme series battery, or some of their conventional batteries, such as their Smart Generation 3, please do consider using my affiliate link in the description. It helps fund my channel, and it helps fund me to do stupid things like this, like drive my van up to the Arctic for 2 months. Whatever the case, I hope you come away from this video with a better understanding of lithium batteries for leisure use and what goes on underneath those battery boxes. If you like this content, my sort of hopefully reasonably technical videos, or my travel and extreme travel videos, subscribe to the channel. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.